Happy Wednesday, the middle of the week. If you saw my post on Facebook, I had a pretty big migraine yesterday. And when you have a really big one, it takes some time for it to completely leave. So I thought for the practice today, we would do something that's a little bit gentle, but still we're going to move. Just not build up a sweat. So just find yourself in a comfortable seat, right on your mat. If it feels better for you to lay on your back, you can go ahead and do that. If you're sitting in a seat and it's getting a little tiring for your low back or your shoulders, feel free to prop yourself up. If you have a bolster or a rolled up towel can be nice. Give your hips a little bit of a break so you can relax in your seat. But I do recommend if you've been sitting all day on your computer, lay down and take a moment to relax, okay? And then when you find your way there, close your eyes. And listen to your breath. So if you hear my children singing, they're playing in the playroom, which is right behind that wall. And I didn't want to interrupt them, so I was like, you know what, you guys can keep playing in that room, and people can just deal with a little bit of childlike noises every once in a while. So while you're listening to your breath, notice how the inhale and the exhale feel. Is there a temperature to your breath or even to your body? Are you feeling a little cold or hot today? How is the breath? Is it smooth and steady? Where you feel like you can take a deep inhale fully. There's no restrictions at all. Or perhaps a little shallow this afternoon. Not quite as deep. And if you want to take a deeper breath, if you want to start to change your natural breath, soften the belly. Let go of any muscles that are being held there. And allow your breath to go deep past your chest, into the belly, and hold for a moment. And then slowly exhale everything out. And hold for a moment. And repeating that breath. Notice if your mind begins to drift away from the breath, if you hear external noises. You might hear a plane overhead, or maybe you have kids of your own playing in the other room. Notice what your mind does when you hear those noises. Does it start to make a negative story? Why can't people be quiet? Why can't I have my quiet space, my meditative space? And maybe replace it with, that's just the way of the world. There's always going to be an external noise. And our job is to quiet the inside, no matter what's going on the outside. Because we cannot control anything going on the outside. The only thing we have any type of control over is the inside. And sometimes we don't have a lot of control over that either. And if you're still in a seat, reach your arms up overhead, sweeping your arms in a big circle. If you're laying down on your back, reach your arms up overhead and stretch really long.
Yeah.
And exhale, bringing your hands to heart center. They're already on your bed. Close your door, please. Take a deep inhale through here. Exhale through the mouth. Let's do 2 more breaths that way. Inhale. Last one. If you're still on your back, roll to your side and slowly find your way up to a comfortable seat. And we're going to interlace our fingers behind our head, letting our palms push back into the skull. And then squeeze your elbows together and then pull them wide apart. A little bit wider. And then exhale, bring them back together. Inhale, open. One more, exhale, squeeze. Inhale, open. Now we're going to add on to that movement. On the inhale, lift the chest and allow your head to look up to the ceiling. Maybe the elbows can draw down and away from each other a little bit more. And then exhale as you start to draw your elbows together, tucking your chin into your chest. Try to keep the rest of your spine straight and neutral. So we're just moving with a cervical spine and maybe a very tippy top of the thoracic. And then inhale, opening up, elbows wide, crown of the head rests in the hands. Exhale. Once again, keep the movement in that top spine if you can. No worries if your chin can't touch your chest. We're just moving in that direction. One more inhale and one more exhale with your own breath. And then releasing your hands down to your knees. We're going to move in a cat-cow way with the spine now. As you draw a big round curve in the spine, you might be leaning back a little bit here and allow your chin to chuck into your chest at the very end. You can pull on your knees to create a little more space, especially between the traps and the upper shoulder blades. And then inhale as you start to round the spine in the other direction, pushing the front of the spine forward towards the belly button. Gazing up. And then exhale, moving and breathing. One more on your own breath. Beautiful. Okay, we're going to find our way into tabletop position. Bringing your hips over your knees and your shoulders over your wrists. And then starting to shift your hips back and forward. Getting a little bit of movement in your wrist creases. So if you can keep your hands where they are, notice the mobility of range in your wrists as you move the hips back and forth. So if it feels okay, maybe walk your hands in slightly, an inch or two, as you start to move again. And if you'd like to add on cat-cow into this, start to drop the belly gaze forward as you exhale around the spine, hips go back. Building on the movement. It's like a little roller coaster. You can switch directions if you haven't already. If you want to move in a different way, you're more than welcome to. This is your practice. And then coming to neutral spine, taking your left arm, we're going to draw a big circle, still moving our hips forwards and backwards. But this time making big circles, finding freedom in that shoulder area. And let's switch directions. You'll notice maybe one side felt a little freer, a little less sticky in the joints. Inhale, sweeping that arm up high. Exhale, threading it through. Resting on the left shoulder. So I can reposition myself here so I can show you. Left shoulder down the ground. Keep the right hand where it is. And then pushing your right hand into the ground, lifting the right shoulder off the ground and maybe looking up slightly. Exhale as you bring the right shoulder head down to closer to the ground. Inhale, push the ground away, lift the right side of the body. Exhale. Let's do 3 more of those.
Sorry, I don't know that one.
I wasn't talking to you, Alexa. Last one. And then coming down, rolling yourself up, tucking your toes, sitting back on your heels here. And so we're going to still play around with our left shoulder here. Taking your hand to your left shoulder and drawing circles with your elbow. A lot of shoulder movement and neck movement. Reversing direction. And don't worry about how quickly you move here. Think about how big of a circle, how wide of a circle you can draw with that elbow. Notice if it's narrow and just pointing away from you, or if you can make it go in a more 360-degree movement. Okay? Yeah. Let's do the right side. Starting to move our hips back and forwards. And if you'd like, you can keep your fingertips pointing forward, or this time flip your palms so the fingertips are pointing towards your knees. Now, if this feels too extreme, try to do one hand at a time, keeping the other hand where it was before. And you'll notice you don't have as much range in how far back and forward you can move the hips. Before, the bottom of the palm was off the ground, and we really want to keep the palm down here to find more stretch in the forearms. And if it feels really good in one spot, feel free to stay there, or maybe add on a little cat-cow movement here. It's going to be a little bit smaller. Reversing direction if you went in that way. If you were a swimmer, it's kind of like butterfly pose. Okay, flipping both palms towards the front of the room. We're going to start moving the right shoulder. So taking that right hand, drawing huge circles with it. And switching directions, going back or forwards depending on where you naturally went first. Inhale, setting the arm up. Exhale, threading it through, resting on the right shoulder. So once again, keep that left hand closer to your body instead of reaching it out in front of you. So that way you can push your hand into the ground while lifting the left chest higher off the ground. And exhale, lower. Inhale, push. You might find a little more space in that back body as you exhale, lower. 3 more times. The more you can push that right arm down to the ground, the deeper you can feel this between the blades. Exhale, child's pose. Feeling the breath. See if you can soften your belly once again to allow the breath to move past the chest and the ribs. So you're pushing the diaphragm down, which stimulates the vagus nerve, which is responsible for helping calm your nervous system. One more deep breath. And then rolling yourself up 1 vertebrae at a time, tucking your toes once again. And then lifting your knees off the ground this time for toe stand, toe pose. 100% right now still. Still in that little haze. So your heels are stacked right over the toes if you can, which means the knees might need to move forward slightly, and you engage the belly button into the spine. Now if you're falling over all over the place, by no means do you have to have your hands together at heart center. You can have your hands down to blocks on your sides, or if your hands or arms are really long, maybe you can find the ground. And if you fall out, you come down to your knees and try again. And eventually you start to build that strength. So then one day you can find balance here. And then see if you can stand yourself up here, staying on your toes. If you need to bring your heels down, that's okay. But push the ground away, start to straighten the legs. Keep lifted, the heels lifted. And then inhale, sweeping your arms up, palms touch at the top. Exhale, bringing your palms together, heart center, closing your eyes. Pausing and feeling your heels can be down to the ground. This time maybe lift all 10 toes off the ground. All 10 toes. And then exhale, soften the toes, soften the legs. Soften the breath. Finding yourself at the front of your mat, toes touch, heels slightly apart. Inhale, sweeping your arms up, palms touch. Exhale, soften the knees, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, bringing your hands down, taking your right foot back, keeping your knee lifted. As you inhale, lift, crescent lunge. So we're going to do a little twisting here, bringing your arms out wide into a T, and then shifting your torso over to the left. Reaching the right fingertips towards the front of your mat, the left fingertips towards the back. Inhale, coming back up through center, arms reach up. Exhale, coming back out wide. This time, torso twists over to the right. Find length throughout the fingertips. Inhale, arms reach up, back through center. Exhale, over to your left. Inhale, we're going to do this 1.5 more times. Moving with your breath. Last one. Inhale, arms reach up. Exhale, bringing your hands down to the ground. Keep your right hand where it is. And you might need to scoot that back leg a little bit further so then you can lift the left arm off the ground. Otherwise, bring your right hand to a block to give yourself a little bit more height. And we'll be here for 3, 2, 1. Exhale, bringing your left hand down to the ground, stepping the right foot forward to meet the left. Soften the knees. Interlacing your hands behind your back. Forward fold. Now if you'd like to shift the upper body left to right subtly here, go ahead. If it throws you off balance, then don't do it. Soften the head, soften the neck, soften the jaw. Exhale, releasing your hands down to the ground. This time, left leg goes back. Rooting your feet. Inhale, lift, crescent lunge. So before we open up our arms out wide, feel stability here. Noticing your legs, if you have a deep hinge in the front knee or not. The deeper you go into the front knee, the more you're going to feel this in that back thigh. So you choose your own adventure here. Exhale, reaching your arms out wide, twisting over to the right. Inhale, back through center. Exhale, over to your left. Take your time shifting your gaze as you go side to side. And we'll do 2 more on each side. reaching out through the fingertips and the shoulders, the tops of the shoulders, create a little bit more space. And then on your last inhale, arms come back up into crescent. Exhale, left hand comes down to the ground on the inside edge of that right foot. And if you like, the right hand comes up for a twist. For 3, 2, 1. Exhale, bring both hands down to the ground, walking your feet over to the left and then pivoting your toes towards the left side of your mat. Inhale, coming halfway up. Exhale, soften the knees, walking your hands out off the mat for this wide-legged downward facing dog. So pushing your hands into the ground so you can elongate the space between your wrists and shoulders, and also your shoulders to your hips. And then while doing that, keep your feet strong, all 4 edges of each foot. If you need to keep a bend in the knee, go ahead. And then exhale as you walk your hands back to center, and then starting to shift your hands towards the back of your mat, and your legs and toes will follow until you come into a steer pose. So now your toes are pointing towards the back edge of your mat, or the other side of your mat where we were just facing. And your legs are in a crossed X position. Exhale, walking yourself all the way around the other direction so you can do both sides of those outer hips. Where can you soften? Where are you holding on to tension still? One more breath here. Exhale, walking both hands toward the center of your mat. Right foot is in front. Step your left foot forward to meet the right. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, bringing your hands down, walking yourself into high plank pose. Taking one inhale here. Exhale, knees down, chest down, chin down, everything down to the ground. Untuck your feet. And let's bring our arms down to our sides here. Interlacing your fingers behind your back. As you inhale, lift the chest, gazing down slightly to the ground. And then maybe, if you like, lift your feet and your knees. And we're going to be here for 5 breaths. Exhale, release, bending your knees so you can windshield wiper the knees side to side. Moving slow and gentle today. Doing things that will open up our body, soften our body. Tucking the toes and then finding your way to child's pose. And then into downward facing dog. This time our legs are their normal distance apart, so not a wide straddle down dog, but your regular. And if you'd like to walk your dog here, go ahead. And just like we were doing in the wide-legged version, really push your hands into the ground. So we're not doing any type of push-up here. You're pushing away, lifting the hips. One more breath. Exhale, bend your knees, walking yourself to the front of the mat. Inhale, hands to shins, halfway lift. Exhale, soften the knees, forward fold. I'm doing that one more time. Inhale, creating more length along the spine. Exhale, bending the knees, sweeping your arms up. Utkatasana, chair pose. And in this chair pose, lean your weight back into your heels. And then into your toes. And back again. And forward again. Doing a little rocking sensation. And you probably have one or other that you prefer. I'm going to go back and forth a few more times. Maybe your toes and your heels lift off the ground. Or maybe they stay grounded and solid. Last rock. Exhale, sitting a little bit deeper into your chair, bringing your hands together. A little bit deeper until you come all the way down to a seat, rolling down onto your back. And then kicking your feet up into the air as your arms rest down by your side. And we're going to move our joints of the lower body now. We've done a lot of the upper body, and now we're going to open up the lower body. So starting to bend your knees, really squeeze the feet into your sit bones, and then lengthen the legs again. Exhale, bend the knees and squeeze. You can use your hands if you'd like. Just dig a little bit tighter. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, squeeze. Maybe you draw your knees into your chest, keeping your low back on the ground. One more. Inhale as you lengthen. Exhale, squeeze. Keeping a squeeze, bring your hands to your knees and then start to draw your knees away from each other and back together again. So often when I cue this, I'll see people drawing big circles in the same direction with both knees, like you're stirring a pot. This one, you're pull them away, okay? So I can move slightly so you can see, but we're doing this kind of position instead. And you can keep your toes together. And just like we were doing with our shoulders, we really want to find a maximum range here. So don't rush the movement. See how much space you can create along those hips. We're squeezing in really tight. We're going out really wide. And then pushing the knees far away from us. And then reverse direction after your last one. So this is a really nice movement to get those joints nice and open for triangle pose, happy baby, extended side angle, all these big half moon pose. If you're feeling like you can never stack your hips enough, this is a nice way to open them up where you're grounded and not putting any weight on them. Kicking your feet up to the sky and allowing your legs to move so they are hip distance apart. There's about a foot in between your feet. And now we're going to move our ankles into big circles. And you can do them in the same direction, opposite direction. It's up to you. Snap, crackle, and pop in here. Reverse direction, whatever one went left can go right, or right can go left. Okay, now flex and point the feet. Maybe the toes can join with the foot, so it's not just relegated to the ankle and the calf, but also the toes. And we're going to end by flexing our toes, pushing out energetically through our heels, so our toes are pointing a little bit closer to the ground. Bringing our hands underneath our head and our elbows reach away from each other. Keeping that flexion. Inhale. Exhale. Maybe you lift your head and your shoulders off the ground, keeping the low back engaged and the legs. And then exhale, release your head back down to the ground. Inhale, lift. Keep the legs strong. Exhale, lower. One more. Inhale. You can keep your hands where they are or reach your fingers for those toes. Keep reaching the fingers for the toes. Your head and shoulders keep lifting off the ground. Maybe you're able to find those toes. Maybe your hands are down here. That's okay. We're still reaching. We're reaching. We're engaging the core muscles. We're engaging the back of the legs. And then exhale, release, dropping the soles of the feet down to the ground. Windshield wiper the knees side to side. Slow and steady. Taking that right foot, crossing over the left knee for figure 4. And then you can draw that left knee into your chest. Once again, relax your jaw here. Allow your head and your shoulders to be released. So if your head is lifted here, let it go all the way down to the ground. If your shoulders, heads are hunched forward, draw them and relax them down. If you feel any pain in your knees, you can flex your feet to help protect the knee joint. Otherwise, don't worry about it. Your knees can, or your feet can do whatever feels best for them. And so you can stay here in figure 4 on your back, or keep your feet in figure 4, and then start to come up onto your forearms. You can stay here, or you can start to come up a little bit more, getting your leg a little bit closer to your chest. So you might feel this a lot in that right hip flexor. The closer that you walk your body to your legs, the more you'll feel it. If it feels too intense, you can either come back down to your forearms, come back down to the floor, or scoot that front foot out slightly towards closer to the front of your mat. Now you can stay here in your figure 4 position if it feels nice and lovely, or come down into fire log pose by taking that left foot, bringing it down to the ground, and stacking shin bone over shin bone. So you're going to have your right shin over your left shin here. So we're just going into deeper levels of the hip flexion here. So straightening your spine on the inhale, lifting the rib cage a little higher off the ground, and then exhale, coming forward. And you can come down to whatever capacity you would like. Just make sure if you are in fire log pose to try to have your ankle over your knee and your knee over your ankle. So you might need to reposition here. And maybe one day your forehead can come down to the ground, allowing your head and neck to soften. So another option if you're in fire log is to walk your hands over to the left slightly, getting a little more stretch along that right outer hip, all the way up the lateral side of the body. And then you walk back through center to the other side. Inhale, rolling up, finding your way back down to the mat. Dropping both feet down to the ground and just taking a moment to pause and feel in between sides. Okay, figure 4 on the other side. Left leg crosses over the right. And start slow and steady. If you're already feeling something here, feel free to creep that right foot on the ground. Otherwise, lift the right foot as you draw the right knee in towards your chest, and maybe you can take your hands through the hole of that you created, and then grab onto that right shin. And whatever modifications you did on the other side, feel free to do so here, whether that meant flexing your foot or not pulling your knee down quite as much. Another cue I often give is to push that bent knee, the externally rotated knee, away from you so you can feel it a little bit more. Always working within the own mobility of your own body. Then you can stay here for another minute or start to find your way up. Right sole of the foot comes down, pushing up onto your elbows. keep pushing yourself up. Maybe you come into your hands, pushing your chest towards your legs. This can already feel really, really intense, and this is a nice way to come into fire log while protecting the other knee. Now maybe you want to come into fire log here. This time the left leg is stacked on top of the right, and then come down to whatever capacity you would like. Knowing that each side is different, and just like our mind creates stories, our body has their own stories. Maybe you have a football injury, or you just slipped and fell one day. There might be a little bit more of those out there. And then if you're in fire log, walk your hands over to the right, if you'd like. Always if you'd like. Taking a deep breath, softening the belly, softening the outer hips, and then over to your left. Inhale back through center. If you're still on figure 4 on the ground, find your way up to a comfortable seat. And if you're in you can come into lotus legs, you can sit in crisscross applesauce. That's up to you. We're going to do a little bit of neck exercises here. So we're going to take I think I'm mirroring you, so it's going to look different. But take your chin over to the left shoulder. And then maybe the right hand walks away from you, fingertips on the ground. You can even try dipping the right shoulder so it's less elevated than the left, if that feels okay. And now the left ear draws down to the left shoulder. And you can play around with the height of each shoulder relative to each other, or how far away that right hand moves. And then taking the chin down to the chest, doing little neck rolls here. Not worrying about the right ear to right shoulder yet. We're just doing a big, slow neck rolls. We'll do the other side in a second. And take your time. If you'd like to reverse direction, go ahead. Okay. Whenever you're done with your last neck roll, we're going to switch sides. So finding yourself back into a stacked position, each vertebrae over the next, skull of the head stacked right on top. And this time taking the right chin over the right shoulder. So you're looking just over your right. That left hand can reach away from you. You can elevate and depress each shoulder head, if that does anything at all. And now slowly, slowly taking that right ear over to the right shoulder. And so for me, I can feel this pretty quickly along the left side of my body. Noticing how the inhale and the exhale changes the way this feels in your neck. And then drawing your chin down to your chest. Slow neck rolls here. Reverse direction. Okay, we're going to do one more thing with our necks. And instead of doing big neck rolls this time, we're just going to take our right, or either ear. We'll do left ear first. Left ear to left shoulder. Right hand walks away from you, and then start to draw little lines up and down with your nose. And so notice if you tilt your head slightly, maybe a little bit more of the back of the ear versus the front of the ear closer to your shoulder, and if you draw little lines, how that feels. there's one area in particular, stay there. And we're going to switch sides. Right ear, right shoulder, left hand moves away. And then draw your tiny, tiny little lines with your nose or your chin. And you might tilt the head slightly so you're at a different angle. Take another breath or two wherever it feels really nice for you right now. Beautiful. Bring your head back up, closing your eyes just to feel. Noticing your whole body. From the top of your head down to your fingers, surrounding your pelvis, your hips, your knees, and your toes. And we're going to find our way down onto our back. You can stay in a seat if that's what you prefer. And then finding your way into Shavasana. Actually, I want to do a little supine twist before that. My body feels like it needs that. So keeping the soles of your feet down to the ground, reach your arms out wide, maybe goalpost arms, and the knees fall to the left as you gaze to the right. Inhale, bringing your knees up. Maybe you shift your hips over an inch or so to the left before your knees fall to the right. And you gaze to the left. So we've done a little bit of neck movement right before this. You might feel less tension back there than you might usually. Right now I feel very little tightness in the back of my neck. If there's still any residual tension, see if you can bring your breath there. Softening the shoulders, softening the back of the head. And then bringing your gaze up, knees up. Reaching your legs and arms long up overhead. If you'd like to do a Shavasana, feel free, go ahead. Just close your phone or your laptop and stay here for however long you need. Otherwise, keep stretching, reaching each leg a little bit further away from the other. Maybe you do the same with your fingertips. Just like the left moves a half an inch, the right moves a half an inch. Your pelvis tilts slightly. Releasing your arms and legs down by your side. So like I said, feel free to stay in Shavasana. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining me in this gentle yoga practice. I know it was a lot slower than I usually do, but it's nice to take our time moving through these postures and paying particular attention to our breath versus how a pose should look. We're just feeling the pose. I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope you have a relaxing evening, and I wish you love and health. Namaste.